And now, marine weather around Alaska.
Tonight's weather showing a weakening front pushing inland here with some light rain and shower associated with it, tapering off out toward the coast, then a break. And the next system here pulling eastward north of the Aleutians there, but spreading kind of a widespread area of light rain, fog, and drizzle from Amchitka, Kiska Island eastward here, almost reaching Nikolsky late tonight. And dry North Gulf Coast here. Most of the eastern interior, a few lingering showers up here in the 40-mile country back in toward possibly Fairbanks, in toward Nenana, but nothing significant. And variably cloudy with some isolated showers here, especially along the central coast of the Panhandle, that low pressure area. Then tomorrow, just a trough kicks off a few isolated showers down over the southern southeast coast. Otherwise, mostly cloudy with a few sun breaks, and even more so up here over the Copper River Basin, North Gulf Coast. Cloudier day tomorrow over Cook Inlet with chance of rain. Susitna Valley northward into the interior, the remnants of this weak front pushing moisture into the central part of the state, extending back to the northwest. Next system, not all that strong, will bring small craft advisory level winds into the eastern Aleutians with light rain into the Alaska Peninsula and possibly as far north as the Pribilofs, drying out behind that. And then on Monday, that system tracks into the southern Gulf of Alaska and then will take off to the southeast Monday night and Tuesday. And maybe some light rain up along the North Gulf Coast, showers in the interior, showers and light rain with that trough there along the Yukon Delta up toward the Bering Strait. And it'll extend all the way up to the western Arctic coast. But again, light precipitation, no heavy winds associated with that. And definitely no heavy winds with this next weaker system tracking eastward here with light rain into the eastern Aleutians again, back toward Adak. And from there, looking at the coastal water wind forecast for the south coast tomorrow, northwest 10 knots, south to southeast at 10 to 15 knots for the central coast, and the north coast, east-northeast, light at 10 knots with seas 4 to 5 feet. Light variable winds for the northern inside channels tomorrow, otherwise Stevens Passage looking at a southeast wind at 10 knots, northwest at 10 for Clarence Strait. Light winds continue for the southeast coastal areas through Monday. West-northwest here on the south coast at 10 knots, west 10 knots on the central coast, east at 10 knots on the north coast, and south 10 knots now for Lynn Canal, southeast at 10 for Stevens Passage, and northwest at 10 for Clarence Strait. Prince William Sound, southwest wind 10 knots tomorrow, 10-knot breezes from the west and south here for the North Gulf Coast, variable winds at 10 knots for the Barren Islands. Cook Inlet, south winds 20 knots, seas up to 5 feet. And then for the day on Monday for Cook Inlet, variable to north winds at 10 knots, northeast at 15 for the Barren Islands and Kamishak Bay area. Otherwise, the eastern North Gulf Coast looking at east winds at 20 knots with seas around 4 feet. And for Prince William Sound, east winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. And now moving over to Kodiak Island. We've got southwest winds here at 15 to 20 knots in the forecast for Sunday. And for the Alaska Peninsula, variable winds at 20 knots and south winds at 10 knots for Bristol Bay. Outlook for Monday, west-southwest winds 15 to 20 knots here for the entire Alaska Peninsula, southwest 15, Bristol Bay seas 3 to 4 feet. And for Kodiak Island, northeast winds 15 to 20 knots, seas 3 to 5 feet. And for the western Aleutians, west-southwest winds 20 to 30 knots, seas as high as 12 feet. Central Aleutians, gale warnings. Southwest winds 35 knots, 7 to 10 foot seas. Small craft advisories for the eastern Aleutians for south to southwest winds up to 30 knots. And for Monday, eastern Aleutians, south winds 15 to 20 knots, southwest at 15 here for Adak and Atka, and west winds 15 knots for the western Aleutians. For the southwest coast, south to southwest winds 15 knots, south 15 for the Pribilofs, south at 20 here for St. Matthew Island, and then southwest winds at 20 knots for the St. Lawrence Island area and also for Norton Sound. And then for the day on Monday, south winds at 20 knots for Norton Sound and St. Lawrence Island, southwest winds 20 knots for the southwest coast, Pribilof Islands, And St. Matthew Island with seas out here over the Bering running from 7 to 8 feet, closer to 4 feet here in toward the coast. And for the eastern Arctic coast tomorrow, east winds 15 knots, seas 3 feet. Small craft advisories for the central coast, southeast at 25, and then back down to 15 knots from the southeast on the west side. And the Chukchi Sea, small craft advisories, south to southwest winds 20 to 25 knots. And on Monday, south to southeast winds, 20 to 25 knots for the Chukchi Sea. Otherwise, southeast at 15 for the western Arctic coast, southeast at 10 for the central coast, and south-southeast winds at 10 knots for the eastern Beaufort Sea coastline.